So strong was the young beauty of the year, it might have seemed at its height were it not that each day grew stronger. The new day excelled the one that was past, only to be outshone by the next. Day after day, the sun poured out a great light and heat and joy over the earth and the delicately clouded sky. The south wind flowed in a river straight from the sun itself, and divided the fresh leaves with never-ceasing noise of amorous and joyful motion. So mighty was the sun that the miles of pale new foliage shimmered mistily like snow, yet each leaf was cool and moist with youth, and the voices of the birds creeping and fluttering among the branches were as the souls of that coolness and moistness and youth. If one moment the myriad forms of life and happiness intoxicated the delighted senses, at another a glimpse of the broad mild land stretched out below, and of the sun ruling it in the blue above, gave also a calm and a celestial dignity and simplicity to the whole. One after another the pools, the rivers and rivulets, the windows or glass roofs of the vale caught the sun, and sparkled as if Vega and Gemma and Arcturus and Sirius and Aldebaran and Algol had fallen among the meadows and woods. On some days the sense of oneness, of wide power and splendour uniting earth and sky, of infinite simplicity, triumphed. On others the spirit was content to bathe and half lose itself in lumbers, exuberance, complexity, in the odours and colours and forms, one by one, in the rich rising flood of the grass, in the hurrying to and fro of preparation that was nevertheless not overmuch troubled about the end. The children seemed to be trying to gather up all the flowers. It was their way of striving to grasp the infinite. They were scattered over the hillside, where the pale sward was made an airy or liquid substance by the innumerable cowslips nodding upon its surface as upon a lake, and that held their small shadows each quite clear. All day they gathered flowers, and threw them away and gathered more, and still there were no less. The earth continued to murmur with blissful ease, as if, like the wandering humble-bee, it were drowned with the warmth and the abundance. One child separated herself from the rest, moving down instead of coming across or up the hill. Often she went on her knees among the flowers, with bent eyes that saw only the hundreds close at hand. But from time to time she raised her head, her delicately browned and yet more rosy face, her gleamy hair that was as pale as barley upon her temples, but elsewhere golden brown as wheat, her round and calm yet lively eyes, her restless, happy lips, and looked steadily for a moment the whole of earth and sky, and grew solemn. Annie returned to the other pleasures of the 100 cowslips just at her feet, the crystal and emerald wings among them, the pearly snails, the daisies, and the chips of chalk like daisies. Tighter grew her hand round the swelling bunch. She slipped, the flowers fell, and not all were picked up again. And so there was yet room for bluebells when she reached the wood below. In the moister fields still lower there were kingcups of gold and cuckoo-flowered pink and white, looking as if they had fluttered down from the sky. And for these also a place had to be found. The stitchworts of a hedgeside lured and piloted her to the hollow, hardly larger than a great hall, where a brook ran straight for once in its life. By the slow stream, forget-me-nots made a continuous haze on either bank. She was now quite alone, under the old cherry tree of the forsaken garden at the water's edge. 6 or 8 huge crooked branches rising out to the rocky trunk bore up a dome that was all flowers. They were in rounded clusters as of bubbling snow and close as honeycomb. The lovely freckled white smelt bitter and sweet at once. The flowers hummed with bees, and between the clusters were streaks and wedges of the blue. The child looked up suddenly at this glorious roof, and her smile of surprise passed into what would have been indifference, because the blooms were inaccessible, if she had not caught sight of the forget-me-nots, when the flights of a cuckoo that had been calling out to the cherry tree carried her eyes away to where he skimmed the water. He did not fly far, nor cease to call while he was flying, or when he was seated on one of the alders by the brook. She looked at him as she was plucking the forget-me-nots. This narrow hollow was his room, she thought. Yet it was full of other songs. There were blackbirds hidden in the hazels, or clearly defined against the mayflowers or the bronzed flowering oaks. Thrushes talked and called out to her 100 times. Did she do it? Did she do it? Did she? Did she? She did, she did. And she laughed. A swallow flew over his image in the water, as if about to dive in after it, and then rose up and curved away. Smaller, unfamiliar birds sang rillets and minute cascades of hurrying song. The goldcrest repeated the tune like the unwinding of a tiny, sweetly creaking winch, like the well winch at home. But the lazy cuckoo was lord of all. Now she had filled both hands, and each time she grasped a new stalk, some of the old fell out. So presently she laid them down in the grass to rearrange them. But she now noticed the tall sedges of the brook and wanted some. She looked round to see if anyone could see her doing this forbidden thing, and then went to the edge and stretched out her hand. They were too far. The water was gliding under her, flashing like brandished steel, and yet as clear as air over the green stars of its bed. Everything had always been kind to her, and this water was one of the kindest, so playful and bright, so pure that sometimes they came far to fetch some of it in a pail for the house. She leaned out, and even moved one foot as if to step towards the green sedge. She lost her footing and fell, not quite reaching the blades as she splashed. She was scolded for getting wet, but never much, and she used to laugh as they were dressing her in fresh clothes. And today it was so warm. It was an adventure, but her hair was all wet, and she did not like that. And the water, though so pure, was not pleasant in the mouth, nostrils, eyes, and ears, and nor could she get rid of it. Her hands touched the green stars. She could see them, but the sky was gone. She was surprised, indignant, anxious to be out. Why this cruelty? It was not a game to go on like this. She was angry, terrified, numbed. She could see nothing but water. She heard, smelt, breathed, tasted, touched water everywhere. Who could have done it? Something is cruel. Why? She could not bear it. No, where were her flowers? Where was her mother? She rose up a little, and saw the sun and the cuckoo on the branch through the waves, and heard the man calling to his horse in the next field. Then solitude, all pleasure gone, love, light, warmth, movement was nothing, was over there, was past or never had been and would never be again. It was better now. Sleep, sleep. But in the sleep, songs, visions of the house, forms and faces moving to and fro, and herself going in and out amongst them far away, long ago, over there in that other place. She was hurrying faster and faster, running too fast for her legs, carried away them into the air, and swaying and rising easily and more easily now. She sighed as she seemed to float higher and lighter into soft darkness, into utter darkness, and into nothing at all, where there was never anything or will be anything. The mud settled down. The stream flowed clear and sweet. The sun had not so much to do but that he could wilt the flowers lying on the bank. Life went on exuberant, joyous, august, looking neither to the right nor to the left. The cuckoo called. The bird's song became so drowsy that they were not missed when they ceased, and only in its own echo replied to the cuckoo. The child's white forehead was just above the water, and a fly perched on it and preened his diamond wings. A quarter of a mile away, the dinner bell at home was swung merrily again and again by a strong arm that enjoyed the task.